It was really depressing. And I'm not going to lie. It's not as glamorous as you think it is, which is just like you go through a period of trough and then you come out swinging. It felt like it was forever. It felt like we were in the bottom of this abyss and there was really no way out. And even all of our solutions, we were second guessing ourselves because we're just like, we clearly didn't make the right decisions because we're in this situation. How can we actually trust ourselves? And I think it helps having a good co-founder or a good early employee or team. Eventually, at some point, it was just like 3 or 4 of us. It was myself, my co-founder, our one engineer, and then one ops finance person who would just make sure that there was enough money coming in to make payroll meet. And we would just sit together, and some days were just like really quiet and we wouldn't really say too much to each other. And other days we would just explode and just be like, this is not working, that's not working. And like, but I think ultimately having the trust, at least for me, like I started the company, but I brought on my co-founder pretty early on, knowing that he wasn't ready to quit gave me hope. And then I think when I got hope, he got hope from that. So it was a little bit contagious in that way. And we were just like, no, you know what? We're going to figure this out. Let's look at the data. Let's look at who's using the site. And that led us to finding this one general counsel who worked at this company called EquityZen that used the app like every single day. And we gave him a call. We asked him a bunch of questions. And he was just like, yeah, I just want to use you guys on a monthly basis. I don't want to continuously start projects like startups do. And that's when this light bulb moment went off. And we researched what a general counsel was and what they did and what his company was about. And his company was way bigger than other startups we worked with. And then it also just forced us from a financial standpoint. I didn't go to business school, but like the way you get a business school education is when your startup is failing, because it forces you to look at cash flows. It forces you to read a financial statement. It forces you to like reduce expenses. And I learned how to read a financial statement for the first time when the company was failing and actually care about that. So all of these things that were just like the harder the problem, like the bigger the lesson. And there was no amount of schooling or advice or networking with people that would have taught what we went through during that 2 to 3 year period of making that pivot. And it required us to also shut down the startup side of the business, which was doing a decent monthly revenue, to just focus on this segment because we couldn't do both. We were only 4 people. So it was even scarier because now we're just like completely shutting down this other side of the business and going all in on this one side that was even smaller than from a revenue standpoint than that one. And it was scary as hell. But I knew that like we had to go for the swing. And we also were just, what else do we have to lose than just go all in on this? And after the ego part of it went away, we were just like, let's just do this. Let's double down on it. And it worked out. And we're about to cross like 1 million a month in revenue. And there's no sort of slowdown in sight, but it wasn't easy. I went through a phase, especially after the first time I raised the seed round, and it was a few $1,000,000, and I've never seen that kind of cash before in my life. And I grew up pretty poor, and I never even had a 6-figure job before. There was a lot of high expectations of just navigating that, feeling lots of guilt that like I failed them, feeling like just lots of tiny voices in your head, just like basically being like, you totally fucked this up, and they hate you for it. The reality of it is they're not thinking that. And if you actually raise from like institutional investors, they're dealing with hundreds of other portfolio companies. And for them, their business is, they know that 99% of the investments that they make aren't going to work out. Not that necessarily they're going to fail, but maybe they'll either return their money back or get like a modest couple of 2-3x return. There's usually 1% or 2% that end up like just doing exceptionally well that makes up for all of their losses. So I had all these realizations like afterwards, but like I really beat myself about it. And I don't think that way anymore now. I was always very transparent with them, even despite all of the low periods of starting Lawtrades. I would still send out like the monthly or quarterly investor updates. I would tell them, hey, we didn't get to raise this round. Our revenue is declining, and it didn't feel good sending that, but I still sent it. Of course, you'll sense a little bit of maybe like disappointment because, it's like, all right, they invested in you. They thought you were going to be $1 billion company, and it ended up not being that. It's looking more and more clear that it's not going to be that. But I think we lucked out in terms of getting good investors that like didn't really give us a hard time with that. They understood it. I think that especially with this round that we recently did, I actually optimized for a lot of like founder operators, or even the VC that we took money from. There were former founders that started their own companies and sold and then went into VC instead of purely being like investors, because that allows them to like actually relate to you better and have some level of empathy. And they've been there as well. It's like a startup isn't just like 20% month over month growth every single month for the next like 10 years. There is like ups and downs that take place. And the right investors will understand that and they'll appreciate that and they'll know that is like a normal part of building a business. So I think all that's to say that for anyone thinking about taking money, for me, that's helped optimizing people that have built businesses before, built other startups before, to just have a deeper sense of empathy for when things don't go. And then even if you have investors that don't have a founder background, I would say just be transparent, but just don't beat yourself up as much because honestly, they're thinking about so many other things. They think way less about you than you actually think, if that makes sense. After going through those different business pivots and getting to this like product market fit level, I basically experienced like two deaths in 2020, like shortly afterwards. One, my mom passed away suddenly. And then two, one of my good friends who was around my age, who got me into internet startups to begin with. I learned a lot from him. He also was unfortunately. And these two deaths were like 6 months away from each other. So the reason why that relates to like how I feel when I wake up is every single day since that. I want to say it's been close to like 2 years. That happened in 2020. I don't take any days for granted. I view my time as really finite. I think as humans, we know that we're not going to live forever, but I think the vast majority of us don't really like feel that or don't really can think of that in terms of years or months or days or hours. I viscerally felt that. And I wake up each day wanting to change, if that kind of makes sense. Just my outlook, and not necessarily to be better or be optimized or be more awake or whatever. I just want to just change or just a little bit. And just whether it's my perspective, and obviously it can be reflected back into the business and all of. So it's just combination of wanting to change, wanting to treat each day like an opportunity to be different. And I think a lot of that advice sounds a little like repetitive, but it's just milking each and every day and trying to make sure that I'm having the largest impact possible in this 18 or 18 hour, 20 hours that I'm like awake. And whether that's through learning something new, whether that's through discovering something about myself, whether that's developing deeper, closer relationships with other people or having hard conversations. It's just really ultimately being as true and authentic as possible with as little filter as possible for the remaining days that I have. So I wanted to preface with that aspect of it. And then things that have helped for me. And I wouldn't advise people to just go and just like copy this and do this for themselves and expect some sort of output. These are things that naturally gravitated towards me, and I do it as a way of self-discovery and self-understanding. But journaling in the morning helps me. I think for me, I'm not a big morning person. And also when I wake up, for whatever reason, I'm always just like a little anxious. So being able to just write when I wake up, drinking 1 liter of water, and just writing out anything that comes to me, not with any particular objective, just pure stream of consciousness, like anything that's there. For whatever reason, it feels a little bit better. And then I usually do a short like meditation afterwards. There's no apps, there's no music. I'm usually sitting just by myself with like noise canceling headphones for at least 30 minutes, but usually an hour. I usually feel the effects of it around like the 45 minute mark. And that to me just acts as another sort of cleansing almost. It feels like I'm stripping away certain layers of whether it's thoughts or stress or anxiety. And I just do it for myself. And I don't keep track of it. I don't view it as like a habit. I feel more in tune with myself. I feel more in tune with the universe. I feel more in tune with like things around me when I do get that quiet alone time in the morning. And then, during the daytime, I just try to kick some ass.